Hey, folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Requiem for a Dream, The Fountain, The Wrestler, Black Swan, and finally newly released The Whale, all directed by Darren Aronofsky. It's going to be a great show, so stay tuned and enjoy. Mr. Vincent Daly, how's it going, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay on my end. How was your Darren Aronofsky week?
It was a sad week, no less coming off of the Christmas week that we just had. I mean, if it wasn't for the Christmas decorations, Tom, I would not know it was Christmas. It was a sad week. It was a sad week.
Yeah, these. It's weird to say these films are very Aronofsky-esque.
Yes.
It's kind of strange looking at some of his films. I mean, he could be a weird dude.
Yeah.
To the point where I didn't realize that he directed Noah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, so
I mean, it's out there, and then after that, he directs Mother not too long after that?
Yeah, so that's another thing. He's very weird with his release. So people doing Aronofsky episode, obviously. But like he did Requiem for a Dream in 2000.
Yep.
It's not until 6 years later that we have The Fountain, right? Then he has The Fountain, Wrestler, Black Swan, all come out in 4 years.
Yeah, very short.
Which is crazy. Then he kind of takes a 4-year gap, does Noah, 3-year gap, does Mother.
And now,
right, 5-year gap with The Whale, and he's already working on his next picture. Then,
wow,
it's already set with Jared Leto.
Oh, really, really?
Yeah, it's called like Adrift or something like that.
Okay,
so just like the way he does things is very weird. He's not a big budget guy.
Yeah, and for a while I thought it was only what he was going to be writing as well as directing. That's really not the case for his latter half of his career, though.
He's really just directing.
Yeah.
So, and obviously you picked this. You wanted to match this with The Whale, of course. You just figured, hey, let's go back and do some Aronofsky.
One, not on the ratings in any sort of fashion.
That's true.
We never covered these before, except for Black Swan. And on top of that as well, things like The Fountain may not fit, but honestly, I think the theme this week is that they're all connected to character dramas in some way.
Oh my God, big time, I would say.
Yeah, all of these films, Fountain included, it's all connected to some sort of character going through trauma, going through melancholy, going through sadness, and all of that reaches a head definitely with The Whale. That is directly about
big time.
Sadness.
And you could definitely say it with Mother too.
Oh,
and
sure.
what the actors go through. Now that has been rated.
Yes.
And that's on the site as well.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you bring up the characters. Like, so I have this quote here from an Aronofsky, and he talks about because he's so character driven and upsettingly so sometimes.
Yeah. Well, especially with Mother, that's a doozy.
But maybe this will be a good way to start.
Sure.
So he says, I get excited by the challenging roles, and then I just look for actors that want to do that. I really don't push actors or even pull actors. I just show actors opportunities, and I look for the actors who are looking for that opportunity. If you think about student actors in acting school, all they want to do is emote and go for it, to cry and to scream and do all that stuff. And I think a lot of working actors sometimes forget that's what the job is. And so I'm always looking for the ones that are excited by the challenging roles. And I think the challenging roles allow for lots of different emotions, lots of different feelings, and then hopefully really good performances. So it's more like, here's a character, are you interested? There's a new film I was thinking about doing, and I went to a great actor, and he came back and said, look, I have nothing to prove anymore. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
He also said I'm interested in money, which is not one of my specialties. I'm more like, do this role. There's no money because no one wants to make it, but it's great artistic opportunity, I hope.
Wow.
And I think that
And that's
really,
referring to The Whale as well. As far
as just all of his stuff.
Right.
That's just Aronofsky talking about how he kind of picks his roles and everything like that. And I think what we have here follows through exactly right.
I agree.
I think Noah is the outlier, and
yeah,
I'm glad we're not covering it.
It really is.
You didn't even know he directed it. Me
know.
neither.
Well, because I always think of Mother specifically during the 2010s for Aronofsky. But yeah, I mean, even in researching that's kind of just, I guess, a blind spot that I didn't realize Noah was in there.
It's very weird. So we know that we're getting into very character-driven and very... are these demanding to watch?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All demanding in their own way. But I was really happy that... I was worried about the continuity of this week, and I was coming out of this because I actually watched this in sequential order, with The Whale being the last I watched this week. All of them hit on that same type of character motivated, character led type of examination in his films.
Okay, awesome. So let's go back there. Let's start at Requiem for a Dream.
A doozy we're starting with.
Yeah, and this is kind of his first one. He's done a lot of student films and shorts, and then he did one called Pi.
Yes, which was very close to being on this list, actually.
And technically his first feature film.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
And I hear great things about it, but I've never seen it, and I don't know.
This is such a big... I mean, everyone has heard of Requiem for a Dream.
Exactly.
You've seen it, not seen it, at least you heard of it.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is 2000. Mm-hmm. What do we get with Requiem for a Dream? Obviously, we have... Well, why don't you just take it away?
Yeah. So, like you said, first film that he has for his big break was Pi, but I would say Requiem is definitely going to be his true big break as Aronofsky in his directing career, and definitely in the subgenre of films that induce misery. This film was important for me to cover this week, and like I said, The Whale looks to be in the same exact space. And I can definitely confirm it is exactly in that space. Even 2017's Mother all fits into that type of story that Aronofsky crafts, and couldn't necessarily fit Mother in this week. That's a doozy of a film, and I kind of didn't want to.
Well, and it's on the site too, really.
Yeah.
Some of these is just totally untouched.
Exactly, and that's exciting for me too. To just how we do director studies and watching films. This was an excuse to watch some things that I've never gotten to with Aronofsky. So, this one is a doozy to start with, though. Wow, Requiem. If I had to give it an elevator pitch, it is a roller coaster in the sense that it is a rise up to a sharp decline down. It's like one of those roller coasters that just drop you. It's not really like you're going up and down or anything like that.
It's a hike up a mountain, and then all of a sudden you fall off the cliff.
Exactly. Yeah, you're slipping down. So, this film is about addiction and drug use at the heart of it, and the many forms that can take. I'm not just talking about heroin or pills or anything like that. Addiction is its focus in a lot of ways. The cast is a 4-part ensemble: Jared Leto, Marlon Wayans, Jennifer Connelly, and then Ellen Burstyn. All of them are good in their own right. I would say Jared Leto's New York accent is a bit rough here, if I'm being honest. He's the only one really going all into this New York accent, and it just doesn't. It
sounds something like he would do. Now this is very young.
Oh,
I mean, very young. And Jennifer Connelly too.
Yeah,
I think she's in like the late 20s. So.
Absolutely.
And beautiful, but Jared has that. It's hit or miss.
It's
hit
really
or miss
is.
with him.
It really is.
You watch him in House of Gucci, and it's like he is the best to see on screen.
Right.
And then he's the Joker, and it's a little bit like, all right, not necessary.
Yeah. No, completely unnecessary. Right. Yeah. I think all 4 are great in their own right, but the real beauty of the film is this 4-part juggling act that we have. These, we follow these characters and how that approach to addiction, to drug use, takes them through their life. Like with many similar stories, that destination is complete disaster. And honestly, I can say from a bird's eye, like with all 5 of these movies, there is some sort of disaster that is the outcome with all these stories then. This film is honestly, like I said, not unlike a roller coaster, but not for ups and downs. It's for like this sharp decline. There's a brief brevity to the story, but then after a while it is a complete nosedive downwards until the very end. I mean, to the point that the last 20 minutes of this film are some of the most intense sequences you can get on film for how much in each of these 4-part stories their whole lives are really going downhill.
So I was surprised to see it was only an hour and 42, because I always felt like this film was a lot longer.
Sure.
But really, so you're climbing for basically an hour and 20. and dealing with maybe around 20 of
maybe you're climbing for
an hour and a
first no less. I would say first 15 verse 30, and then it's all downhill. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a doozy, and I'll mention this a little bit later. This was very reminiscent for me to what we spoke about with our Blonde review.
Okay.
That a film that exists only in tragedy is difficult to recommend. However, I did really enjoy this film. It's difficult for me to recommend because of, is total tragedy, is total misery something that's enjoyable to watch? Is that something that you watch over and over again? A rewatchability to it? No, but there is artistry to this film and worth your time.
Yeah, I would say there's two different things there that you said, basically. So is it worth your watch? It totally could be, because if the directing and the acting and the writing is that good, yes. Now, whether it's rewatchable,
right,
different story.
Right.
But, if you're into the art, if you're into filmmaking or film in general, that's where a film like this would lie.
Absolutely.
And I think, and probably we were coming off maybe a little bit positive from it.
Yes, absolutely. I would say it's in the artistry, it's in the craft of this film that I love the most. I love the editing here. It's big because the editing alone is almost as if it's a character in itself. Honestly, that's a trend in itself of Aronofsky's films, that the editing is so strong. I would say it's enough for me to give a blanket recommendation to Requiem because the editing is such a strong character in how we snap from each of the four positions, each of the four characters, and it's just how the story is told, how we're consuming it. It really is phenomenal. The editing and the hand of the director is just such a strong focus, and I believe this did get an Oscar nomination. There's Oscar nominations sprinkled throughout all of these films, pretty much.
Yes.
I think editing was specifically for Requiem as well.
Not for Oscar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was just Best Actress for Ellen Bernstein.
Oh, really? Okay, okay. And she is phenomenal in this. Specifically around any drug use, the cuts are lightning quick and just so visually gripping.
And they still hold up.
Oh, yeah.
Like, does it feel like a late 90s or early 2000s film?
Definitely feels a bit Fight Clubbish.
Okay.
That they're definitely on
callback,
the precipice of a lot of digital tricks to editing, but absolutely it holds up. And again, is part of the identity of the film, part of how we consume it. Specifically around drug use.
Yeah.
It's just so great that it's visually gripping just how quick drug use is presented so that we can just focus on how much it's a priority for our characters and how much they're structuring their days, their lives around this drug use and their addictions. We also cross paths with composer Clint Mansell, again on the score. Honestly, he's all over this week. And we covered him not too long ago, I believe, with Under the Earth or Into the Earth. I forget what that horror movie was.
Yeah, the one where they're in the woods?
Yep.
And, that was a shocker that he did that film.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, that one. Yep.
And he really is attached at the hip with Aronofsky. And this one, it is quite the iconic score. Gotta say, much like the editing, the soundtrack is just as much of a highlight to this film. So iconic in the sense that you'll hear the main track. I think I have the name here. I think it's Lux Eterna. And it's just instantly recognizable, even if you've never seen this film.
Right. It's seeped into culture that much.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Just from the notable theme of that, and that might being a structure in itself to how the story is told, again, just absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, much like Blonde, I really do find myself in love with the production, but hard-pressed to recommend the narrative. That's going to be a theme with The Wrestler, and that's definitely going to be a theme with Whale as well. That it's a tough story to be like, oh, you gotta see this. You got to be in the right mindset, you got to be in the right mood to consume the film.
Did you go into Requiem knowing that though?
Because
it's weird because it's still great filmmaking.
Yes.
So it's not, you're not watching it to I don't know. It's weird to say you're not watching it to have a good time. It's like, why waste your time? But it's like, if you care anything about like a great story being told,
yes,
then it's an automatic recommend.
Yeah,
It's
tough
weird.
because it really is. What is the mindset someone is watching film for? Are they watching it for escapism? Are they watching it to have a good time, for entertainment? Or are they watching it for story? Or are they watching it for kind of art or production purposes? You know, there's a lot of different angles on this, and I think
escapism, it gets it down pat.
Yeah.
Because you melt away to it, and it's just then you're just depressed.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the person that or watcher or viewer that watches movies to get away from reality. This is not the movie for them. You know what I mean? So much to the point that the last 20 minutes of the film, the narrative reaches such a spiral of misery. It's difficult for me to say that the narrative doesn't shape the entire experience, even if you're really appreciating the editing and the music and the production of the whole thing. But much like Blonde, like I said, with that review, I think the craft, the artistry of what the film is getting done, is getting accomplished, is what I appreciate about that. And in that, I don't regret watching the film at all, and can very much recommend it. We're going to go ahead and give Requiem for a Dream a 75.
Oh, 75, good score. Yeah, that right there was a pretty good movie. Did it feel like an hour and 42 to you? Okay, so you went into the film knowing that you weren't exactly going to be having a good time.
Yes, I've seen Requiem before.
Okay.
It wasn't rated.
Right.
But,
Which is how far back you have to go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was a teen when I saw this for the first time.
Did it feel like an hour and 42? I feel like this film feels longer because it's taking you through a lot.
Yeah, and I will say the moment to moment, it doesn't feel the editing is snappy because we're almost rapid fire snapping between the four perspectives.
That's very true.
But it's at the same time it does feel long because it's I mean, you're really going through it with each of these four perspectives. There's no rest that you can kind of just have downtime with the film, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy with Aronofsky because it's already like he's shooting himself on a foot because for all of these films, basically, it's I'm going to bum you out.
Right.
And to get a 75, and we'll see how some of these others do, that's an impressive thing because already it's tough to get excited or want to go see. And if certainly, like he made the comment of, if you're looking to make money, don't come with me.
Right.
Because these are not money makers.
Right.
It is for art. It is for storytelling. And that's just about it.
Yeah.
But 75 for Requiem for a Dream. Pretty good movie, folks.
Absolutely.
It really is. It's
solid
a good
movie, well worth your time.
So we're going to move on. This was the one that I knew the least about, really. Didn't know much about this. This is The Fountain. Like I said, he took a 6-year leap from Requiem to The Fountain. It came out in 2006. It's rated PG-13. An hour and 37. It's snappy.
Yeah, it is snappy.
But after kind of researching a little bit, this is one I'm almost most excited for. I almost like the premise the most. It's called The Fountain, almost like the Fountain of Life.
Yeah, Fountain of Youth.
Right,
Yep.
Fountain of Youth. Yeah, of course. And how did you find this to fare?
It's definitely the oddball of the week.
Okay.
Also, the only sci-fi as well.
Yes, very true.
That is on this week. But even with the very sci-fi premise, I think it does show that Aronofsky loves to tell these character-driven stories. And I was happy because even when I was watching it, I was like, do I cut this? Kind of pressed for time, you know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah.
What else would you put in place?
Maybe I would have included Mother, and maybe I would have included Pi. So
okay.
definitely the honorable mentions.
Now, did you look at the time? I mean, an hour and 37.
It was more so I didn't realize how sci-fi was going to be. But
okay.
again, as the end result, it is still very much about Hugh Jackman as his character in this.
Right.
Here that focus is on a large part of Hugh Jackman's character, and it's explored to a wide extent with this story's multiple settings. The Fountain tells 3 stories of drastically different circumstances, and that role that is played by Jackman in all 3 of those. He plays a Spanish conquistador, a cutting-edge modern doctor, and a space-dwelling far-future monk. So pretty out there stuff. Yeah. I enjoyed that. All 3 of these have some sort of obstacle to overcome with their relationship with the actress Rachel Weisz. I think it's Weisz.
Weisz? No, Rachel Weisz.
Yeah.
Rachel Weisz.
Yeah.
Weisz,
yeah. Some sort of German thing. All 3 of these settings have to have some obstacle to overcome with their relationship, or Jackman's multiple relationships with Rachel Weisz. Performance-wise, she takes the crown, too. She actually outshines Hugh Jackman in this, which was really surprising. She was really good in this.
So she's in it that much? I thought this was going to be so Jackman heavy.
It is, but much like, and I'm going to give away the goat a little bit here, much like a Cloud Atlas.
Okay. Damn it. You mentioned it for... I was
you were going to do it?
Yes, I was going to mention it.
You're going to do it? That's it. That's on the bingo card.
Much like a Cloud Atlas, what?
That we have repeating...
right, of course.
We have repeating roles, repeating characters, so... yeah.
All right, can we just touch on that real quick?
Sure.
How much Cloud Atlas-y was it?
A lesser Cloud Atlas, because it's only 3 settings, so
right,
it's not as drastic, and you can't make as complex of ties, but it is 100% that type of story where you're telling similar themes, shared themes among the mini stories, and like I said, it's much smaller in scale and nowhere near an even split of screen time. Unfortunately, the modern Doctor setting really takes the majority of the screen time. I would have really rathered it being even split between the 3 and spend more time, especially with the this far future monk that Jackman plays. It was very cool, but
it doesn't surprise me though, because the second one takes place in 2000.
Yep.
And is that a
spoiler? Or like just a modern Doctor?
Okay.
Yeah. No, not a spoiler at all.
And I feel like he needs to connect it to audiences somehow, right?
Absolutely. Now, that was his anchor, the modern story. And it's a shame because even on the Spanish Conquistador side,
kind of cool.
I was loving the set design. It was cool. Also, prior to Noah, Aronofsky didn't do any kind of fantasy or historical, historical fiction.
I would have loved to do. I would love to see kind of that part of it. I probably would have liked that much.
Yeah,
that part the most.
But unfortunately, that modern Doctor story really takes the largest part, the lion's share of the screen time, and unfortunately, it is the weakest. It is the most boring of the 3, and least gripping of the 3 is what I find with this. Also, I do feel that the plot, the pacing, it's just a bit too slow, and this is like you said, an hour and 37. Yeah, not a long movie at all. And this is it's a real slow one. It does drag a little bit. I think it's just because it's so much time is spent in this kind of slow medical drama of Jackman's modern Doctor character, and at least for me, the whole time I was craving, when are we going to get these time jumps or these fantasy to sci-fi jumps in tone. I was really excited by that, and so much of the film is not that. So.
And how was the editing then? Was the editing still good and quick and choppy, and it was just the story dragging it down, or?
Yeah, editing was fine. I just think there was just too much emphasis put on the modern Doctor.
So that's really
story.
it. It was just too much of that. Okay.
Yeah, where I think, if anything, like a Cloud Atlas, if more time was evenly split between the stories, I feel the theme tying back. I feel like the arcs of the characters lining up in parallels. It could have been a lot more strong here, and I think it was a little bit of a missed opportunity. This is also, for lack of a better word, this film has some mediocrity to it as far as critical reception and audience reception. I feel like even back then, when people were watching this film, they just said, "Okay, meh."
Really?
It was cool concept, but had its focus in the least interesting part of the story, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one highlight for me is a very interesting color palette, which is not usually something I comment on a major way, but there's heavy yellows and golds all throughout this film. It's really, if there's a theme, it's actually in color design throughout the entire film. And honestly, the whole film is very stylized in its set. So much of the scenes feel, honestly, to the point of over-designed. It could be equally a highlight and distracting element for, really depending on the viewer and how much you're in tune with that. I personally thought this was a stunning film to look at. And if there's a big highlight to it is the design and the care put into this. If anything, tying back to my note with that Spanish Conquistador side, I was loving how much care was put into the environments, the settings, the props. It was really, really stunning work. That is its over-designedness to it. It does feel like it maybe goes too far, that it maybe feels a little cheap.
Okay.
I personally appreciated it.
It was an artistic decision to go more warm, more golds and yellows.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Almost in every frame, almost in every single scene.
Yeah.
It's incorporated in some way.
And you don't get that often. A lot of times maybe you'll get something that's more blue, more blued kind of.
Yeah, I think it is really going to depend on the viewer of whether they dig it or not. And I think it was definitely a tie to the stories that I appreciated. You have these three drastically different settings. It's definitely focusing on them in these overlapping themes, obviously overlapping characters and overlapping arcs. The color design was a minor but appreciated theme and thread between the three as well.
Yeah.
So something I appreciated. So I just love how much care is put into the look of this film, and I suppose some of the symbolism can be heavy-handed at times, but there was a lot of care that ties it together in the design alone, and I'm always one to appreciate design. I think for the first time ever, though, I was saying maybe the film should be longer, honestly.
Wait, so you felt like it dragged on too much you wanted it to be longer?
Yeah, I felt like it dragged on, but I felt like there could have been so much more runway, so much more real estate to play out how these stories tie together, how these themes tie together. If anything, you look at a Cloud Atlas and it's 3 hours plus or something like that.
Well, it feels like it. That's for sure.
Right.
In a good way, because we're the only two people
we're the
on
only
Earth that like.
The only fans.
But that surprises me that you wouldn't say, okay, cut 10 minutes off, the 2000 plot, the Doctor plot, and add 10 to this and add 10 to that's. Wow, that's surprising me.
I know, yeah, it surprised me too. Like I said, probably the first time ever, at least in the history of the podcast so far, that I said needs to be longer.
No, you said it on a few things.
Okay,
You said it on a few things. But so would you just say, okay, if the Doctor plot is this long, make the Conquistador one longer and the Monk longer, and we're good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
all right.
I just feel they needed more runway to develop the stories. And if anything, it would have given more room to create deeper grooves of shared themes.
Play in that world a little bit.
Yeah. Maybe you incorporate a little bit of these kind of cosmic ties that tie these settings together, the cosmic themes or the universal themes that each deal with. And I feel like giving the other two would have even taken the spotlight off of the Modern Doctor theme or the Modern Doctor setting, that I would have enjoyed it more even. It would have been more time away from it, so that when we come back to it, I'm like, okay, I'm excited now to see this again, where it was just too much time with the Doctor side of it, though. But this gets a soft recommend from me for a few notes that I appreciated, mainly design and originality, but I'm hard-pressed to give it much of a higher score. Definitely the lowest of the week. We're going to go ahead and give The Fountain a 59.
59, okay. Well, if that's as far as we're down, that's not terrible.
Yeah, it's not a bad week.
So a very specific watch for people, not an overwhelming. Yeah, everyone go and watch this, basically.
Yeah, I definitely don't regret watching it. Like I said,
that's good. If it was on the chopping block,
exactly. By the end, I was like, okay, no, this definitely fits into the scope of character stories for Aronofsky. It was pretty interesting. I definitely had thoughts around it, especially around design and everything like that.
Okay, very good, Vince. That's 59 for The Fountain. Okay, so like I said, that was 2006. 2 years ahead of the time, 2 years in advance. We're at The Wrestler now in 2008. Big movie. You had Oscar noms for Best Actor, Best Actress. This is Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler. And I think a lot of people will be familiar with this because it has so much hype and definitely, I hate to say, but Oscar buzz that year.
Oh, yeah.
And what did we end up getting with this here?
Sure. So not a true story, but has a couple real-life inspirations, specifically Ric Flair, who is a big name in modern wrestling, and then Jake the Snake Roberts. And of course kind of tells a story that mirrors countless other wrestlers. The wrestler is all about being washed up and feeling the melancholic low after a time on high has passed by. And the lens is put on two characters in this way. Mickey Rourke playing the battered Golden Age wrestler, and Marissa Tomei as well, who is playing a stripper love interest that has maybe not the glory that Rourke has, but similar kind of a dual life that she steps away from, specifically a motherhood that she steps away from. And both of them getting the Oscar nominations for their roles here as well. I gotta say, right off the back, though, the physicality of Rourke's performance is without a doubt, it makes it his career best role.
I think a lot of people would agree with that, too.
Yeah. I mean, Rourke doesn't have, like, an amazing career.
It's very weird.
It is. It's all over the place.
I was expecting this to kind of blow him up a little bit.
Sure.
And maybe the offers were outrageous and he was getting a bunch.
Yeah.
And that's very him to be so selective. But he's not in a lot at all.
Yeah.
And he's so intense.
Yeah.
Like, he's an interesting dude.
It is.
Big time.
It's wild. You know, I have a soft spot for him in Sin City, of course.
Yeah.
But there is such a brutality to the low-budget, trashy wrestling circuit that's in this film that is, you know, I mean, it really puts his body through the numbers. I actually think it's an important ingredient to the magic of the film. And cinematography is right there to be paired with it. Cinematography in the ring. We spoke about this in the In Full Bloom review, that how you present boxing or wrestling in a ring is a unique challenge that every type of fight movie has to confront with. The camera work here is key to how the matches feel. So all at once, the presentation feels staged, reckless, and chaotic. And I think that's a very particular balancing act, because not once does this feel like the wrestlers are real. They are absolutely actors.
Right.
And we see that through some story beats as well. But within the ring, it feels chaotic, like it's not staged. It feels reckless, like they're not actors, but yet we still kind of understand that naturally, how the shots are presented and how the fights are presented. And it really sells a realism to the film. I mean, real talk here, if I know wrestling is fake, and I know the movie is fake, then I think it's pretty damn impressive that I'm flinching when a glass window is smashed over his head. You know, I mean, there's some really good impact and feeling or weight and gravity to the cinematography here. And it's just very impressive.
Okay, and was it just that? Was it also color palettes too, or just overall it was just that the cinematography helped the feel of the film?
Yes, it's about the gravity of being in the ring with these wrestlers.
Yeah.
And if anything, understanding and recognizing that this is an act. This is not real, but feeling just as reckless, feeling just as, you know, life-threatening, honestly, when they're in the ring together,
right,
to put on a good show. And I think that's a fine balancing act. And again, a unique challenge versus a boxing match where it's about maybe showing the lethality of a sport with rules and structure. Here, it was about showing lethality with clearly a performance that is fake,
right,
but showing how it could really be life-threatening in a lot of instances.
And then you have Rourke just selling it.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
It's funny how he picked this. It's again, we went back.
He's kind of made for it. I mean,
yes,
he really is made for it.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was the proper character for this, the proper actor for this. And I think it goes back to the quote that I read in the beginning, where Aronofsky he knows what character he wants. He goes and finds the actor that he thinks will suit it best, and say, "Hey, this is it. What do you think about it?"
Absolutely.
And he finds people that are interested in really going for it.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think Rourke is one of those guys that if he does pick something, he's going to go. He's going to become that person.
Yeah, yeah.
If not, he might be that person a little bit already.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
And obviously, like I said, nominated for Best Actor as well.
Yep.
Oscar, yeah.
Yeah, and same with Marissa Tomei.
Yeah, Tomei, you got it. For actress.
Yeah, she's great in this. Don't let me oversell the action, though. I mean, this is a very mundane plot. You know, first and third act are really electric, but that middle second drags very intentionally slow to sell you on the themes of the film. You know, Mickey is a rock and roll, washed up 80s star. He is out of touch with kids. His attempts to flirt with women are rough. And in many ways, he's flat out just doesn't belong in society. And the scenes that spotlight this, I will say they're a little cheesy. They're a little corny. The majority of these fall in the second act, and it kind of took me out of the film. In retrospect, this is, and I'll hit on this with The Whale, identical to how I felt in The Whale, that sometimes these character-defining moments they're just a little cartoonish. They're a little bit unrealistic, despite so much realism and care being put into this film.
Did they push it too much, or they push it in front of you too much and try to spoon feed it?
Hard to say, and definitely hard to say without spoilers as well.
Okay, all right.
And that definitely counts for the whale and the wrestler. It's just tough to really go into the specific areas where I get taken out of the film without just actually time stamping these. Though I will say there is a lot of enjoyment in the romance between Marissa Tomei and him. Though I would say there's really just solid chemistry at both of these characters being out of their element. Mm-hmm. And there's one specific bar scene that is just fantastic between the two. Just a really great romance within this movie with them. Otherwise, this film is all about melancholy, and that is almost perfectly conjured through a story of a washed-up 80s wrestler. I would say the first film of this week that Aronofsky did not write. The wrestler, I think it shows that Aronofsky didn't write it. It's much more grounded. It's less high concept, less highbrow.
I wonder where, because he continues to not write after this, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
And it's weird because maybe, some of the best films / directors that we know are coming from a guy who takes it on, who likes to write and direct all him.
Yeah.
Maybe he just gets it. Maybe he knows that there's stories. He starts picking up from other novels, plays, which we'll talk about. Like The Whale was already a play.
Yep.
And maybe he just sees something. Maybe he just knows.
I think he's just in tune with the stories he likes to direct, and
knows that maybe he shouldn't be writing.
Possibly,
yeah.
Possibly, yeah. Maybe the fountain really bit him on it. He thought it was too high concept, but yeah, I would say. It's notable to see that development in watching these films sequentially for me throughout the week and seeing that development as a director. I would say nowhere near as shocking or as high concept as the other films that we've covered so far, but a very solid film and definitely worth your time, again, for the notable performances from Rourke and Tomei. We're going to go ahead and give The Wrestler a 70 on the dot.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was expecting a little bit better, but 70s is still obviously a pretty good film still.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to punch a little bit more, honestly.
Yeah, and obviously the critical reception of this film in years past. What was this, 2008? That's a dynamite year, and this film is really revered for that same reason. There are just some golden films coming out, but.
Where do you think this places? Again, we have that stretch of, Info Bloom is kind of a oddball, but you liked it a lot.
Oh, love
But then
Info
we also have, was it The Fighter? We have The Wrestler. We have $1 Million Baby.
Yep.
We have something Paul with Jake Gyllenhaal. Southpaw.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
But we just have
of course, the Creed movies.
Right. We have this strip, and they always seem to do relatively well.
We covered Warrior.
Yes.
Yep.
But as far as 70 goes, this would maybe be on the lower end, actually, of some of those.
Now that you say it, it probably is, and I think it's just because it's that second act that some scenes, they just take me out of it. I feel like it's there's too much of a cartoonish portrayal of Rourke's character being disconnected with society that I think the film sold fine on its own without some of these scenes.
No need to push it anymore.
Yeah.
I will say, it's once again, hour and 49. He knows how to keep films snappy.
Oh, yeah.
And under 2 hours.
Yep.
It's kind of impressive with the stories that he's telling. It also very interesting how this was, if I'm remembering correctly, this was kind of Rourke's somewhat of a comeback.
I think so.
People kind of forget about him a little bit, and then he did this, and it was like, he's on the map again, which is interesting to think of Brendan Fraser.
Sure.
Same exact thing, kind of.
Yeah, Aronofsky has a career in resurrecting in the necromancy of actors' careers.
But okay, so that's 70 for The Wrestler. Let's move on to another one that, whether you've seen it or not, you kind of know about it. When it came out, it was kind of a big deal. It's 2010. This is Black Swan. And like you said, Vin, this is already on the site, but let's explore it a little bit. What did you think of this film?
I love this film.
Yeah.
And I've always loved this film. 5-time Oscar nominee and first win for my girl Padme. I've mentioned before, I feel like some online discourse around Natalie Portman is hating on her as an actress, but I've always liked Natalie, and she's definitely my childhood crush. So I have a weak spot. So.
And she was in Leon the Professional, correct?
Yes, exactly. So
it was also nominated for Best Motion Picture, Best Achievement in Directing, Best Achievement in Cinematography, and in Film Editing, too. So this was a heavy hitter for 2010.
Yeah, and you hit on the note of that editing, much like Requiem, the editing and the director's hand here are just so strong in how the film is presented. It is almost enough for me to give a blanket recommendation alone because of just how unique and how strong the editing is. It's really could be one of those films that someone pays attention to editing for the first time.
Really?
Yeah. The editing here is just so amazing.
So what is it exactly? What is it about the editing? What is going on that's unlike other normal, typical film?
I guess if I had to describe it, it's just the pacing or the intensity of just how the cuts are being portrayed. I just love how frantic scenes are cut. And with this being a psychological thriller, I think that's very important to building the horror, if you will, or building the tension, if you will. I think it's just a very good match for the tone the film is going for. And again, when I refer to editing, it's how we consume it as the viewer, and that really is the truth. I think editing here is a lot of the time determines the tone or the mood of the film. Just how, if you look at like an Edgar Wright or something like that, his films are comedy, not because they're slinging jokes, because the editing is giving the cuts for the punchlines. So
okay, I like that. Yeah.
The story focuses on Nina, played by Natalie Portman. She is a ballerina obsessed with perfection. And up until this point of the story, that meant fully surrendering herself to her dance and her method. However, her mindset is altered when she is denied the fruits of her perfection, the lead role in the new Swan Lake performance. This psychological pressure creates cracks in how she sees reality, how she sees relationships around her, and driving her into absolute obsession. I mean, much like Requiem as well, this film is about obsession. It's about addiction in ways, but it's around this story concept around ballerinas and Swan Lake. There are a few important factors to the madness here. Nina is very juvenile in her relationship with her mother, and this is key to laying the foundation of a lot of psychological tension that is later in the film obviously ramped up to 11 and really cranked up. But early on, it's laid into kind of a general unease that she has with her relationship with her mother. Mila Kunis also has a great role in this, in amping up that tension. She really does. I mean, now, very specifically, I mentioned Fight Club before. Yeah. Very specifically, she gives me Fight Club vibes in being this kind of alter ego, unlocking Nina, kind of a
antagonist,
a dark character. A dark mirror of the character.
Yeah.
And most of all, the use of mirrors is another great foundation of how we see Nina transform over time. Countless mirror shots from dance studios to the dressing rooms, and there's just a nice balancing act. I mean, believe me, I'm not saying it is the most high concept thing in the world or the most high concept thing I've seen on film, but I really do appreciate the literal transformation that we have in the story of Swan Lake, matching with our character crisis through Natalie Portman's character. I mean, it really is just a fantastic psychological thriller. And I'm not saying, again, her matching the performance or her character matching a similar arc or of sorts to the performance she has to put on with the story. Not the most mind-blowing thing, but it's done so well. It's executed upon so well that I really do appreciate this film. And I just think this is actually a scary psychological thriller, This really gives me chills sometimes when I watch this film. It's just paced so perfectly. I mean, some serious Goldilocks zone shit, Tom.
It's doing exactly, it sounds weird, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to, and it's weird that you're getting these horror and creepy or thriller type vibes from a story that's around ballet dancing.
Right.
And it's good. It's a great dance. In and of itself is a great dance, the film. And at an hour and 48, like you said, with the editing, it's a tight package enough where those cuts and those edits, as you said, just adds to it.
Yeah.
Because you're not lingering on too many things. Like it just builds that tension or builds that weirdness or uneasiness.
Absolutely.
Really, yeah.
I think another where this ties into is stream of consciousness. I mean, all of this is from Nina's perspective and her cracking sanity around the pressure of just filling this lead role. And that very realistically could be taken in an emotional way. That very realistically, in a story sense, could be just, that's her arc, that she's under a lot of pressure, and can she overcome this in a heroic way? Instead, this is taken to much more of a disturbing, psychological type of thriller approach to this that I really just appreciate so much about the presentation of Nina's mindset, the stream of conscious editing there to show that we're always in Nina's perspective, no one else's.
Right. Yeah.
And getting into that pressure of a lead role like that. If this was trying to be a full-on horror, in lesser hands, it would be throwing it in our face right away. But just how I commented that the slight pressure of her kind of juvenile relationship with her mother, instead it's just handled in a way that builds the fear in emotional ways, instead of saying, oh yeah, I'm trying to be a horror outright, I'm trying to scare you outright. The fear comes much more naturally. The fear comes from our connection with Nina and seeing what she's going through. I really do love this film, though, and despite feeling very highbrow in the world of ballerinas, it shows a very common pressure that anyone can understand. Jealousy, expectation, coming of age, all simple themes, but really finely tuned by pushing them through our unstable Queen of Swans. This was a double watch for me this week because the simple answer why, I did not want to rob myself of the experience of watching this through one more time. I wanted to just be enveloped.
A film you've seen multiple times already.
Multiple times. I didn't want to take a single note. I just wanted to be in the movie. I can't tell you how much I really appreciated doing so. I mean, create more work for me.
Right.
Unneeded work for me, taking notes then. But if anything, let that play into the recommendation. Watch this movie and get enveloped into the mindset and the psyche of a great psychological thriller. We're going to go ahead and give Black Swan an 83.
Wow, 83. Really good score.
Absolutely.
Really good score. And it should note, too, this is the first time that he has actual box office success here, really.
Yeah.
Made like $107 million, and we don't get that with The Wrestler.
Yeah.
The Wrestler didn't even make 30.
Wow.
So,
really? Wow.
And I don't think The Whale's going to do.
I don't think so either. I don't think
and just
so.
the way the film, it's in theaters and everything like that. But,
you're so right with distribution as well in The Whale.
Yeah, it's weird. But Black Swan, 83%. I'd love it, Vin. Yeah.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah.
I loved watching it.
All right, Vin. So we just want to remind people here, value for value model, folks. Okay, so we're completely producer supported. Are you getting value from the podcast or the website? Are you into film more than what you were a year ago? If you could, you go to thedailyratings.com, you head to the donations tab, and through monetary support, you show us what kind of value that you're getting from the Daily Ratings. And when you do that, you send in a note along with it, which we'll read here, and you are an official credited producer of the Daily Ratings. And as always, if you're enjoying it, go ahead and tell somebody. If you're hearing a conversation going on about film or the Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic, whatever, get us in the conversation. That's where we want to be.
Absolutely.
Or go ahead and poke your head in a random conversation and do it anyway and promote us.
Push it out. And we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, is it appreciation of the podcast? Is it appreciation of the recommendation? Is it appreciation of the website even, as some listeners have said?
Exactly. The whole deal with the value for value is we won't give you 3 to 5 minutes of just random ads that we have to read and pitch to you. We don't have to go and do that. It's really just kind of a through line to you. It can create an extra kind of content block here on the podcast, which could be a good time. And again, you can write us with questions. You can have comments, critiques, or...
Tear me apart on the ratings.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it's an Ask Us Anything type of thing.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what we're turning this into, folks. We thank you so much for listening. We hope you produce here soon. And again, it's at dailyratings.com and head to the donations tab. Sam Hunter created this. It's based on his play, and now it's his screenplay. It starts in a jolting, intense way. I think there is an effort for everything about Charlie to be a turnoff at the beginning. It's all about the path we take, from someone who we judge right off the cuff to someone we learn to love. that journey the audience takes is the reason I wanted to make this film.
Wow.
This, of course, we're talking about The Whale. This is our new release, our 2020. This is Brendan Fraser coming back to mainstream, kind of. Yeah. And that's Aronofsky saying why he even wanted to tackle this, which was originally a play. And like you said, Sam Hunter, who's the one who did the play, also is the screenplay for the film.
I think that is a huge value add as well, Tom, because I did not know that quote, and boy, is he right. I mean, in the beginning, quite literally the first introductory scene that we get with Charlie as, Fraser's character, man, it is hard to swallow, honestly.
Yeah.
A little bit in your face, too much, but that's an interesting context that, intentionally, he's trying to kind of shock you and then bring you back a little bit with it.
So this is his longest film as far as Aronofsky, what we covered today. It's still under 2. It's an hour and 57 minutes.
Yep.
Of course, it's rated R. That's just how he does things.
Yeah.
And what do we get? It's a small cast. It's kind of a small story. So how does he take us on this ride overall, and did you enjoy it?
I definitely enjoyed it. Just once again, a tough film to recommend. There's quite a lot of buzz around this one. Of course, Oscar talk for Best Lead Actor.
He already got the Golden Globe.
Oh, really?
Nominee, yeah.
Wow. So that's probably, written in stone so far. And a lot of haters online as well for the film to be kind of soft canceled around fat phobia, which I personally find ridiculous. But and I think I saw a quote from Aronofsky as well that he kind of finds it ridiculous or he doesn't understand.
He was literally just like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Because, as far as because I was reading up on it, obviously, and looking at some of these quotes and everything, but because I really wanted to hear him and how he tackled it, especially now that he's getting blowback from it. And him and the writer were like, this has nothing to do with that. This is supposed to tell a story and actually be kind and sympathetic for a person in his shoes. The reason why Sam Hunter created it was his problem with obesity as a kid.
Oh wow! So he had a personal kind of journey with it.
Yeah, so it's very much to Aronofsky. He's just like, I don't get it.
Yeah, and I can't say I do either. Especially if anything, with his purpose of maybe initially there is a kind of a tacky perspective Charlie has in the film very initially.
Charlie being Brendan Fraser's character, of course.
Yes, but very soon we see that the film is all about creating an empathetic view of him and his plight. Like with all the films this week, though, it is a experience, and I hope to give some insight into if this is worth your time, because I think The Whale, more so than most this week, is something that you kind of have to see for yourself to make up your mind on. The Whale focuses in on Charlie, a hideously obese writing teacher that seemingly is trapped in his own home and further imprisoned by his horrible eating habits. As is with the case with most, this destructive addiction to food is a comfort to a pain and trauma from his past, and the film is structured in a way that we kind of puzzle together what that trauma is from his past. Exploring that trauma is the whole point of the film, though, and it's not just Charlie that has issues. He has his nurse, a Mormon boy that comes door to door, and even his estranged daughter are all put under the same lens of the film, that we're kind of exploring what kind of baggage they are carrying with them and how they deal with that baggage.
Interesting.
Much like Requiem is, how do they deal? How do they live with addiction?
Right.
Black Swan, how does Nina deal with this pressure, this coming of age? The Whale is honestly right in line with it. And like I said, if anything, the watch list of this week I would highly recommend for folks at home. If you want to explore Aronofsky in a similar way, I thought this was a great build up towards The Whale, and I could appreciate a lot of elements there.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you did it, that you watched this sequentially, that you went with the time. Now, my only thing is, would you add Mother in this, or would you highly suggest putting Mother in this?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Just because Mother is...
Okay.
Mother gets lost in the sauce a little bit. Mother gets lost in its own analogies a little bit too much. In ways, is still very character-driven, especially around Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh, yeah.
Is a doozy.
So go back to The Whale. It is kind of a smaller cast. Not saying his other films aren't.
Yeah.
But again, with it being the longest one, is it very formulaic, as in... okay, we have this character. Let's find out the baggage. Hey, new character. Let's find out the baggage. Or is it presented because he's so talented that it's gripping and you don't feel like it's a formula?
I definitely didn't feel like it's a formula, and different than like a Requiem where it's a even 4-part split.
Right.
This is truly about Charlie and his story. Also, setting-wise, and I'll return to this as a little bit of a critique, but setting-wise, he's immobile. So it's all in
his house or apartment.
Yeah. So as far as a character, who's coming to visit? His nurse that keeps up on him.
Right.
This Mormon boy that goes door to door. And the only reason why he's coming across is he's going door to door, and then his estranged daughter. So it's people visiting Charlie as well that are in the focus of this kind of examination of trauma.
And for 2 hours, it's a lot of one setting then.
Yeah.
I mean, does it drag? Is it paced well still?
I think it's paced well. It is absolutely a critique that I have, that it is very visually boring.
Yeah, okay.
So much so that it is a praise of Fraser's performance that he does kind of blend into his own environment like he is a piece of furniture.
Right.
But also visually boring that there was definitely some snores in my theater almost immediately.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. There were a lot of different reactions in my theater. A lot of tears, a lot of laughter.
Yeah.
It was all over the place.
So you were in L.A.
Yeah, I was. I was in L.A. for this one.
And you were there for something else. You were there to go see Al Pacino at a video game awards.
I was.
How was an L.A. crowd compared to a crowd like us?
All over the map.
Snores we've had.
Snores. There is some light comedy to this film. It's more so just to kind of create some brevity to the point.
I was going to say, how crucial is that?
It definitely isn't without... It's not inappropriate comedy.
Okay. But I can only imagine a setting like this, you need a little bit like, okay,
you need a little bit of brevity.
You can breathe at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a release valve for
exactly,
it. But some people were just busting a gut, and I was like, all right, that maybe deserves a little bit of a smirk, not a gut laugh. So, and then of course, I mean, it's a very emotional film, as is right in the marketing, honestly, of it. So a lot of tears and whatnot. So interesting theater experience. Maybe I don't agree with the West Coast sensibilities too much, but but I didn't expect this film really was the darkest and the saddest of the bunch, even over Requiem and Wrestler. Requiem is much more of a dive as far as how it handles this, but the entire film is, I can't really call it melancholy. It is tragic and it is sad and it's very dark. I note this because the mood and the tone of the film is really beyond those moments, and even these slight comedic moments that are thrown into the script, the focus on trauma does not let up at all. And I would say again, much like the setting, there is praise and there is critique. In this tone, not really letting up, I gotta be honest, after a while, it kind of becomes a pity party a little bit. It kind of becomes a little arcless. It doesn't really have... I mean, again, it does have these comedic moments, slight brevity put into there. But for the most part, I mean, after a while, it's just like... It's sad upon sad upon sad. And I felt like it was almost like he's an obese guy. He's kind of wallowing in sadness. The whole film is kind of wallowing in its sadness.
Wow, it's like watching a TLC special almost, or a TLC show.
Right. My 900-pound yada yada.
Right, but that's the thing where just like you said, it's arcless almost.
Yeah.
So by the end of it, are you like, all right, well, let's just wrap it up then? Or is it, you know what I mean? Like how do you feel? Do you start to get used to Charlie, to the fact of just like, it's less sad at the end because you just spent this much time with him, so it's not as shocking. Seeing him isn't as shocking anymore.
Yeah.
You probably get used to his voice and his tone and the way he works, where it's like it's not as shocking.
Yeah, and if anything, that's why that quote kind of resonated so much with me. Upon seeing the film, is that I do 100% agree with what Aronofsky said there, is that in the very beginning, he kind of shocks you with a couple tacky scenes.
Right,
honestly,
yeah.
It's handled very, very poorly. But if that was the point to start us in the bad, and then kind of slowly but surely we grow to love Charlie, and we grow empathy for Charlie, then the film is successful in that. And I would say by the end, you are empathetic for Charlie.
Just a little bored with Charlie then.
A little bored, and like I said, the tone itself is like... maybe pity party isn't the right word.
And you could also say repetitive. It is.
Yeah.
It's a little one note.
Exactly.
And it's one note for a little bit. Do you think they should have been shortened up like some of the others? Like, should you taken 20 minutes off and it's an hour and 37?
I don't know. I don't know what that honestly would do. Maybe if you cut some of the secondary characters, because really the main focus is Charlie and his daughter.
Okay.
And reconnecting with his daughter.
Okay, so the nurse,
the Mormon boy. I wouldn't say it's filler, because again, they're all under the same lens.
Yeah.
What kind of baggage are they handling? A little bit wash and repeat.
Okay.
I guess with the themes. Yeah.
Can we talk? Can we bring up Brendan Fraser and how he was? Or just stick with your notes if you weren't there yet.
No. Fraser is fantastic.
Okay.
This. Yeah. Fraser, and I'll say it again towards the end. I think this is probably going to be honestly identical in Oscar nods as the wrestler. Best actor for Fraser. Best supporting actress for Sadie Sinks, which is his daughter.
Yep.
But no best picture. I think Fraser did a great job here.
Really?
And if there's any reason why I'm recommending this film, it's for Fraser.
Oh, right.
Yeah. This is without a doubt his best performance, a la the wrestler, a la Mickey Rourke.
And I would say the second most critiques, besides it being a lot of people, like you said at the beginning, having issues with the telling of the story that people had an issue with. How was the prosthetics, the kind of the fat suit? I heard some people had issues just the fact that it was a thing almost. But Aronofsky had also said if it wasn't going to be right, they weren't going to make it.
Yeah.
And so how was that? Did it look like Brendan Fraser gained this much weight practically?
Yes. And especially how, it's kind of gross to say, but how the fat hangs, I'm sorry to, but I mean, he's like medical problem.
Right.
Specifically how he walks with a walker. Or how he's getting around the apartment. Again, we're not going anywhere but the apartment,
right.
So there's not like a huge variety in seeing him in different circumstances or different even lighting, for instance.
Right.
So I would say, yeah, absolutely, it gets a pass, but also very good. There's actually probably only one scene that I said, that fat suit looks like it needs to be rearranged a little bit, like it was slipping on him a little bit.
Okay.
But literally only one scene. And more than anything, he brings the sadness needed for... why this character is dealing with his trauma through eating, through morbid eating,
right,
and eating disorder. Honestly, he's great. Honestly, just as great as Sadie Sinks. I recognized her from later seasons of Stranger Things. She was fantastic, and a young actress as well. She brought a lot to the table and a necessary ingredient in the back and forth between Fraser and his daughter. Not only for the story.
That must have been great when those two were on.
Oh, yeah.
And just going back and forth with each other then if they're both that good.
She's also key to some of the light brevity the film has, which is important.
Yeah.
But she plays a very interesting role. She's key to that brevity.
Yep.
She's also kind of the antagonist. And in ways, she is the goal of Charlie, Fraser's character, to reconnect with his estranged daughter. So a very important role that she filled. And at first, I was like, oh boy,
Right.
She's not exactly a child star anymore. She's been on Stranger Things and probably a few other things. But I saw how important she was going to be in this role, and I said, oh boy, is this going to be something bad?
Right.
No, she was phenomenal, and if anything, deserved of a Best Supporting Actress nomination.
Beautiful.
I would say these two are standouts for it.
Very cool. Okay.
Back a little bit to the story structure. Like I said, it is puzzling the Charlie's past together, and dialogue is a bit info dumpy. It's just jammed, packed sentences that just feel a bit unnatural, and just the same way, this is how I felt about The Wrestler. It handles certain character moments with a sledgehammer. As you're watching it, the movie kind of forebodes these sequences like horror almost as it's being built up to. I know that's maybe odd to say, but that really was my feeling, that it really kind of forebodes these sequences. You see the writing on the wall. You see when he's going to fall into his binge eating.
Right.
Sometimes it's handled well. Other times it's just handled way too heavy-handedly. Especially with what being in one setting, I feel some things can go left unsaid. If anything, specifically because it's one setting.
Yep.
Things can be in the world. Aronofsky can pull from his world building and design that he had in The Fountain and bring a little bit of that into this. It's just tough because sometimes, again, it's handled well. Other times, I thought it was handled with a sledgehammer. And if anything, it's right in our introductory sequence with Charlie. Going back to that quote, I mean, that I can't tell you how right what Aronofsky is saying is there. You know, he's dead on with his own movie. So he is dead on. And like I said multiple times already, you know, I feel identical to how I felt about The Wrestler. I predict we see potential identical Oscar nominations. I'm always fascinated to talk about these films that people don't know how to feel. The variance online is huge. I mean, you go from the rumor mill of 20-minute standing ovation for Frasier when this was first released, and then obviously the outrage of the portrayal and the soft cancellation that people are demanding.
Yeah, but it seems like audiences are loving it. It also, I mean, audience score 94. Critic score is 67.
Interesting.
I think it was a way lower Metacritic score than I thought. And I wonder if it's the critics. And I hate to bring it up, just being so SJW type stuff where
they're falling into the, you know, they want to be on the outrage side.
Right. Yeah.
They want to play it safe.
Exactly right. Play it safe. And I wonder if that's bleeding into it, and which sucks because if this performance is so good, which has been hyped for so long, and we have been looking forward to his performance in this.
Absolutely.
You know, it would just suck to see that go unnoticed, kind of.
It does. And I hope that doesn't get lost in the shuffle, because Frasier's performance is great. Frasier is really poised here to come back in a major way. Maybe, you know, again, not to overcompare to The Wrestler, but identical to how maybe Rourke was poised to really come back in a major way with his acting.
Yeah, I just hope Frasier actually does.
Right.
Again, I feel like Rourke is the kind of guy that got a bunch of calls and was just like, no.
Nah, yeah.
Frasier, I hope, and he did a sit down with Adam Sandler. It's like Variety does that stuff, or one of the companies that are all copying each other.
Yeah.
But it was a deal. And Frasier was like, people are calling it my return, and he's just like, you know, I was acting the entire time, but even he was just like, but I really appreciate it. Like, obviously, this is my first big return into big motion stuff, and that's exactly.
I fingers crossed for him, because he's a sweet boy. He's a
apparently in real life.
Yeah.
Like just a good guy.
Yeah, I think I even sent you something on like 60 Minutes or Sunday Morning, CBS Sunday Morning, that it was just such a heartwarming interview with Frasier. I mean, he's just he's a lovable guy, and I want to root for him. And that's not to say that, you know, the critical lens here is, you know, any kind of gripes that I have with the film and the presentation and maybe a little bit of dialogue and story structure aside, Frasier is phenomenal. Sadie Sinks is phenomenal. And I think that's where, you know, I really lean into that. This was a good platform for the actors, maybe just not a best picture type of nod, best director type of nod, if we want to really boil it down to, you know, Academy recognition.
Absolutely,
or something like that. And personally, I think the story might just be the weakest part for me, but the performance and the execution of the idea is where it cracks into a solid recommendation. We're going to go ahead and give The Whale a 71.
Oh, 71. Okay, all right.
You wanted more.
Yeah, but 71s for you are very good.
Yes.
I mean, we got to be real here a little
bit. I think that's a fair balance between 90s audience, you know, low 60s for critics, you know what I mean?
What did Tar get?
I gave Tar, I believe, a 66, I want to say.
Yeah, you gave it a 66. Okay, because that was boring, but so character Kate Blanchett driven. Yeah.
Yeah, very true.
71. I mean, still, like we say, when we get in the 70s, that's a pretty good movie.
Yeah,
and you might want to make some time for it. And Frasier, I know I will be definitely. I don't think you knew this. I'm excited to tell you this. So you saw it Friday, December 9th.
Yep.
Which was its release.
Yep.
You know, it only came out in 6 theaters. And you were one of the 6 theaters.
What?
You just happened to be in LA that week.
Wow.
For the Game Awards.
My God.
You didn't know that.
And I had this whole week planned for Aaron. I wouldn't have seen it then. I just flat out wouldn't have seen it.
No, because you can't get it on Amazon, I don't think yet. Because I tried to buy it because I'm going to watch it, maybe give it Tommy Toots.
Yeah.
But
give the old Tommy Toots.
But yeah, you were only 6 theaters. And
right
you managed,
place, right time.
And had no idea.
Right whale, right apartment.
So, folks, if you want to go see it, it's really going to be coming out and hitting theaters a little bit more wide on Tuesday the 20th. Okay?
Yeah, and certainly to just support Frasier as well. You know what I mean? Again, the performance here is why you go see this movie.
This is almost a really early watch we have here for a new release, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But okay, Vin, all right, so that's 71 for The Whale. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on, or are we going to roll credits here on this Aronofsky mini special?
Right. Yeah, I enjoyed the dive into the director. Next week, you know what's coming out. It's the big blue. It's the big Avatar. So we're going to be doing a Cameron deep dive, which I'm very excited for. And you will all find out how much Tom and I truly despise Avatar. So
and it's not. It's just the worry. Avatar. Yes, I was going to say and James Cameron, but no one likes James Cameron.
Right. Yeah.
His ex-wife doesn't like James Cameron, obviously, hence the X part. But we can get into that next week.
Yeah, and excited for maybe a good technical dive because all of his films, I mean, they're jumps. They are jumps in the tech. So that's exciting to watch in a different lens.
It's going to be a blast to talk about, kind of going a deeper dive with some of those films, some of those big films. So it's going to be a cool week next week and a big week. Vin, thank you so much for watching these. Thanks so much for stopping by. Folks at home, we'll run it down one more time here. We have Requiem for a Dream with a 75%, The Fountain with a 59%, The Wrestler with a 70%, Black Swan with an 83%, and finally The Whale with a 71%. Folks, we thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, could you give us a good rating or tell a friend about us? If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or if you'd just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com. We have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you received from us. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.